So how does a design become a legend? I mean, not just popular, not just well-made, but truly timeless. An icon that people are still talking about generations later. What's the secret sauce, right? Well, today we're going to find out, and we've got the perfect case study to do it.
And that case study is the M1911A1 pistol. You know, for over 100 years, this firearm has pretty much set the standard for power, for reliability, and just beautiful, functional design. It's so much more than a piece of engineering. It's literally a piece of history you can hold in your hand.
All right, so here's the game plan. We're going to trace its entire life story. We'll start with how it was born out of pure necessity, then get into the nuts and bolts of what made it a classic. After that, we'll see how it was forged in combat. And finally, we'll look at how this legend is still thriving today.
Okay, first up, an enduring icon. We're talking about why the 1911 is so much more than just a tool. It has this presence, this story, that honestly very few other designs can even come close to.
I mean, just let that sink in for a second. Over 100 years. We live in a world where your smartphone is basically a dinosaur after a year or two, right? And yet this basic design hasn't just survived, it's thrived. It's become the very definition of a reliable, powerful handgun.
So, where did this all come from? How did it all begin? Well, like a lot of truly great inventions, the 1911 wasn't just a cool idea. It was born from a very specific, very urgent need. You see, the US military had a serious problem on its hands, and they needed a solution, fast.
See, back at the turn of the 20th century during the Philippine-American War, the US Army realized its sidearms, well, they just weren't cutting it. They weren't powerful enough. They needed a handgun with what they called stopping power, the raw ability to stop an attacker in their tracks right then and there. The request sounds simple, right? But the engineering challenge to actually pull it off, it was huge. And the man who stepped up to solve this massive challenge? Well, he was an absolute legend, a certified genius, John Moses Browning. This guy was an inventing machine. His designs were so fundamental, so brilliantly simple and effective, that a ton of them are still in use today. He was, without a doubt, the perfect person for this job.
Now, Browning's design wasn't just handed the contract, oh no. It had to go through a series of absolutely brutal US Army trials, up against designs from all the other big names. And get this, in one famous test, a single one of his pistols fired 6,000 rounds without a single jam. Not one. It didn't just pass the test, it completely dominated. And just like that, it was officially adopted as the Model 1911.
Okay, so what was the secret sauce? What was actually going on inside this thing? What made Browning's design so revolutionary that it's still being copied over a century later? All right, let's pop the hood and break down the anatomy of this classic. All right, the absolute heart of the 1911's genius is its short recoil operation. Now, in simple terms, what happens is the barrel and the slide lock together for just a split second when you fire. It's like this little mechanical dance that safely handles all that crazy pressure from the cartridge. Then, they unlock, the empty shell flies out, and a new one is loaded. It's this elegant but super tough system that makes it unbelievably reliable, especially with a big, powerful round. And speaking of that powerful round, the .45 ACP. Now, this is key. The bullet was developed right alongside the pistol. They were designed together. This wasn't a case of, let's build a gun for this bullet we have. No, the gun and the cartridge were a perfectly matched set, a complete system built from the ground up to deliver that one thing the Army demanded, stopping power. But you know what's cool? The design didn't just stay the same. After World War I, they listened to the soldiers who were actually using it. That feedback led to the M1911A1 update in 1924. They added an arched housing on the grip so it fit better in your hand. They shortened the trigger so it was easier for everyone to reach. And they made these little cuts in the frame behind the trigger. They sound like tiny changes, right? But together, they took a great gun and made it feel absolutely perfect.
Now, a great design on a drawing board is one thing, but the 1911, it earned its stripes where it counts. It became a legend in the heat of combat.
I mean, just look at this timeline. It's kind of staggering. From 1911, it served U.S. forces through World War I, World War II, Korea, Vietnam. It wasn't officially replaced until 1986. Just think about all the technology that came and went in those 75 years, from biplanes to space shuttles. It's a record of service that is absolutely unmatched.
Whether you were in the muddy, miserable trenches of World War I or the hot, humid jungles of the Pacific in World War II, the M1911A1 earned this almost sacred reputation among soldiers. It was the one tool you just knew would work when your life was on the line.
But the story doesn't stop in 1986 when the military retired it. Not even close. In a lot of ways, that's when its second life really began. That's when it cemented its legacy not just as a weapon, but as a true, undeniable classic.
Let's just put this number up again because it's that important. 75 years. For 75 years, it was the standard issue sidearm. No other military handgun has even come close to that. It's just the ultimate testament to the genius of John Browning's original design.
So where does a 100-year-old design fit in today? Well, you might be surprised at how diverse its modern life is. Look at this. A huge chunk of its use, 40%, is in competitive shooting. That tells you everything you need to know about its accuracy and trigger. Then you've got tons of people who trust it for self-defense, and of course, collectors who absolutely cherish it. And get this, even some elite law enforcement and military units still choose it over newer pistols.
So yeah, the 1911 is no museum piece. It is a living, breathing platform. The basic mechanics that Browning figured out all those years ago, they still influence countless modern pistols. And today, literally hundreds of companies are making their own versions. Everything from old-school, faithful copies to insane, custom-built competition guns. It's just an incredible journey when you really stop and think about it. It started as a simple tool, built to solve a very specific problem for the Army. It became a soldier's most trusted friend. And now, it's a cultural and engineering icon, loved by millions all over the world.
Which brings us all the way back to where we started. What's the secret to a timeless design? Is it just simplicity, pure reliability, or is it something more? With the M1911, it really seems to be a perfect storm of all of it. A brilliant, simple design that just works, reliability you can bet your life on, and a history forged in the toughest places on Earth. It's the ultimate proof that when form and function come together that perfectly, you don't just make a tool, you create a legend.
The M1917 Revolver. It's an amazing story about ingenuity, a little bit of desperation, and a legacy that went on way longer than anyone could have guessed.
So let's just jump right into the big problem, right? Picture this. Your country is about to dive headfirst into the biggest war in human history. And you have to arm hundreds of thousands of soldiers like yesterday. What's the plan? What do you even do?
Well, that's exactly the spot America was in back in 1917. The U.S. is officially in the Great War. The troops are fired up, the country's ready to go, but there's a problem, a big one. The whole industrial machine that's supposed to arm everybody, it's about to hit a massive wall.
Okay, so let's dig into the details here. What was the actual problem with the U.S. military's standard handgun?
See, the thing is, the military had already found what they thought was the perfect pistol, the M1911, designed by the legend John Browning himself. I mean, this thing was a marvel. Powerful, reliable, totally ahead of its time. On paper, it was the dream weapon. But, as we all know, wars aren't fought on paper, are they? And this was the real problem. The M1911, well, it was complicated to make. It had all these super precise parts and tight tolerances. Factories like Colt were running 24/7, but they just couldn't physically make them fast enough for an army that was growing by hundreds and hundreds of thousands of soldiers. So, you've got this logistical nightmare on your hands. How do you solve it? Well, this is where some good old-fashioned American ingenuity kicks in. Instead of trying to, build a bunch of brand new factories, which would take forever, the Ordnance Department had this genius idea. They thought, hey, why don't we just use what we've already got? I mean, Colt and Smith & Wesson were already churning out big revolvers. The only trick was, how do you get a revolver to shoot the Army standard pistol ammo, the .45 ACP? And the whole solution, literally the whole thing, came down to one simple, but honestly revolutionary little piece of metal, the half-moon clip. See, here's the deal. The .45 ACP cartridge is what they call rimless. It doesn't have that little lip on the back that a revolver needs to grab onto to pull the empty shell out. This little clip, it was a brilliant fix. It snapped onto 3 rounds and gave them that rem they needed. And what was so great about this system was how fast it was. a soldier could carry a bunch of these clips already loaded up. So instead of fumbling with individual bullets, you're loading 3 at a time. Pop one in, pop the other in, and bam, you're reloaded. For that time period, that was incredibly quick. So, with that problem solved, the brand new M1917 Revolver went right into mass production and was shipped straight to the trenches. So if you put these two guns side by side, what do you get? Well, the M1917 was way faster to make, and its reliability was just legendary. I mean, think about it. A simple revolver has way fewer moving parts to get gunked up with trench mud. And the best part? It used the exact same powerful .45 ACP ammo as the M1911. For logistics, that was a massive, massive win. And you gotta understand, this M1917 wasn't just some cheap backup plan, no way. It was officially called a substitute standard. That means it served right there, side by side with the M1911, filling a huge gap and making sure American soldiers had a reliable sidearm when they needed one. But believe it or not, the story doesn't just stop when the Great War ends. Oh no. For the M1917, with its tough, simple design, its career was really just beginning. I mean, look at this timeline. It really shows you just how long this thing stuck around. World War II kicks off, they pull them out of storage and hand them right back out. Decades later in Vietnam, yep, still being used in special roles. For any piece of military gear to have a service life like that, it's just incredible. Just stop and think about that for a second. A gun designed for the muddy trenches of World War I was still the go-to tool for the tunnel rats in Vietnam 50 years later. We're talking about super tight, dirty spaces where a semi-auto pistol could jam in a heartbeat. That revolver's dead simple reliability, that wasn't just a feature, it was a lifesaver. So, what is it? What makes a 100-year-old design like this stick around? Why do we still talk about it and respect it so much today? Well, its legacy is kind of a mix of things, isn't it? For one, it's a perfect symbol of that American can-do, get-it-done spirit. It's famous for just being tough as nails. And yeah, let's be honest, seeing Indiana Jones carrying one definitely helped lock it in our minds as the go-to tool for adventure. And this quote, man, it just says it all, doesn't it? When you needed 6 shots you could count on, it was there. In the absolute chaos of a firefight, the last thing you want is something complicated. The M1917 gave you something priceless, the rock-solid certainty that when you pulled that trigger, it was going to go bang. So it kind of leaves you with a question, right? In our world today, with all this smart tech and super complex gadgets, what can we still learn from a simple, rugged machine like this one? Maybe it's that sometimes the best, most brilliant solution is the one that just works every single time.